today we're going to be talking about Swiss Army Man that we just saw, even though it's been out for like a while.
I splashed myself with water. I'm so sorry. Okay, yes. Swiss Army Man came out a while ago, but we only just saw it because it's just what happens sometimes. It wasn't in any theaters, so it's hard to see.
Yeah.
It is starring Paul Dano and Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah. And it's about a guy that's like stranded on an island and he finds a dead body. And then they become friends.
Yes.
And
he uses them as a tool, like a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah. And it's directed by
Daniel. Okay, so directed by Daniels. They directed a bunch of music videos, including Turned Down for What.
Yeah. Which is kind of interesting. This is, I think, their first full-length movie.
This is their debut.
And it won some, like, awards already at, like, film festivals. So that's basically
the synopsis of it. I thought it was really good. I thought it was, like, really funny and enjoyable and, like, kind of crazy. We were in a movie theater with people that I don't think really understood what was happening.
I know,
there was, like, that
sitting
weird
next
couple.
to us, the girl was like, this is weird.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you not know this movie? Like, did you not watch the commercial?
Yeah, like, this was gonna be a weird movie.
Yeah, like, there was no point where I was like, this isn't gonna be weird.
Yeah.
Like, it's about a guy who uses a dead body as a tool.
Yeah.
Like,
It's kind of a weird way to go.
and they were kind of weird already because they were paying separately, and I was like, thought they were on a date.
Yeah.
Not that you can't pay separately on a date, but
I thought that they like came in like they were together, then they were like said real salty like that girl was like, we're gonna pay separately.
And then the guy kind of just like stared forward because I like looked over and I was like,
awkward. Sorry. Judy,
So,
stop.
yeah, that was weird.
Being a butt.
But yeah, so I don't think everyone in the theater really quite understood what was going on.
But I guess that's to be expected considering we saw it at 1 p.m. on like a Tuesday, because that was like the only time they had left. But yeah, so
I thought it was good as well. Really
highly
funny.
recommend watching it.
Yeah,
especially if you like kind of weird movies and
it was definitely almost
things.
a little bit like Little Miss Sunshine kind of vibe, like that kind of weird where it's like weird, but it's not like weird, you know? Like, does that make sense? Like,
it's weird, but it's not like unbelievable almost.
Yeah, it's like, it's very indie film, like very, like, that's why it reminded me, and then he's also in Little Miss Sunshine, so I just was like, this is a continuation of that movie.
This is him later in life, is that guy from Little Miss Sunshine. Yeah. I could believe that.
No. So, yeah, I mean, it's gotten a lot of good press. It's, I think, pretty well rated, so I would recommend it. If you haven't already seen it, you should go see it, or rent it, or whatever. It's probably almost like DVD time.
Yeah, don't rent that shit.
Don't do that. Okay.
Okay, from this point on, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't seen this movie and you don't want spoilers, then yes. Okay, so let's talk about the movie.
Yes.
The reason I meant to mention this before, is that the director, like when you watch some of his music videos, has a very recognizable like directing style.
Yeah.
Like he uses that. What's the thing called where they like use slow-mo followed by like using something really quick?
I don't know.
There's like a name for it, but he uses that like a lot, and he uses that a lot in this movie. And this sort of like almost dream-like sequences
like
of stuff that's happening.
Like with the music, and then like, you know, when he's walking on the bus as the girl.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, it has all these like crazy lights, like you're almost on drugs or something.
Yeah.
And so that, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, and it was kind of just about like desperation of someone who's lost, and like about how you like talk about things that you're not supposed to talk about, like sex.
And you
like,
sort of like get
death.
an understanding of him like working through his own issues while like trying to teach this person, Daniel Radcliffe, about the world.
Life and the world, and it was interesting like how much he Hank liked movies, and he like brought that all in, like his way that he designed all these sets, and then he
they talked about Jurassic Park, and they had like the E.T. reference with like the movie like little play thing,
like all this different like movie stuff, which
it
was
was
really
hilarious.
Cool. Yeah.
Like the dialogue The dialogue is so funny in that movie. Like, when he's like, I want to have sex, then he's like, that cork, the thing you did to me with the cork is not considered sex. He's like, no, stop.
Yeah, and then when he's like describing, he's like, well, you're kind of like, he's like, no one loves you, and you're kind of thrown away. You're trash.
It's like, what? You can't just say that. He's like, just saying it's going to my mind.
I know, because it's like those movie, like, I'm trying to think of the show it reminds me of, like, where you have that character that, like, doesn't know about, like, our world, and so they, like, say things.
Like a fish out of water kind of thing.
Yeah, so they, like, say things, or they, like, do things where you're like, that's not okay, you can't just, like, do that, and they're like, but why? Like,
yeah.
But I'm trying to think specifically, I can feel, like, the movie or show that I'm thinking of, but now I'm like...
That would be you.
Yeah, now I'm not really entirely sure. But, yeah, so it was just, like, really funny, like, the dialogue that they would have, and the, like...
Yeah, and then, like, it's interesting the stuff they talk about. Obviously, they talk about farting a lot in the movie. That's, like, a main... Like, it's like a third main character, almost, in this movie. It is so prevalent. They also talk about masturbation a huge amount. And I think that's really interesting, the way they, like, talk about it, how he thinks it causes death, and he's like... Oh, like, every time you masturbate now, you think about your mom. And he's like, no, people think that's weird. He's like, whenever I masturbate, I'm going to think about your mom. That way you won't be weird anymore.
Yeah, he's like, no.
Like, this movie is amazing.
Yeah, and it was just like, yeah, there was just, like, a lot of stuff about, like, sex and masturbation and, like, weird stuff that was, like, talked about in, like, this kind of interesting way.
Yeah, and it was, like, kind of a funny story because they're, like, falling in love, sort of.
Yeah, because he's, like, pretending to be this girl who he's, like, kind of stalking. And it just, the end, honestly, got so, like, this took a really kind of dark turn almost, because you realize, like, at first I feel like I was thinking the whole movie that, like, this girl was actually his girlfriend. And then I thought in the picture that he was looking at, the Instagram picture, that was him with her. And I was, like, pretty sure that it was, like, in his mind, him and her together, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. And then it just got, like, really weird.
I was thinking that he was going to be the dead one.
Yeah, I thought that maybe he was going to be dead the whole time, too.
Especially when they had the scene where he's like, oh, yeah, just come and identify the body. And then I was like, wait, is it his body? But then it was like, oh, they just got the names mixed up. I was like, he was dead the whole time.
Yeah.
Which wasn't right. The ending was, like, really weird and also hilarious, like when all the people are standing on the beach and his dad's like, yeah, and one girl's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and like the cop lady and reporter just like,
it was like, oh god.
Yeah, so they just kind of, it's like, it took kind of like this lighthearted tone throughout the whole movie. In the last like 10, 15 minutes were like, this got kind of weird, because it's like you're like stalking this woman's Instagram, you've never talked to her, and
you have her as like the background on your phone,
and it just like got a little like bizarre. But then it kind of connected back to when he was talking about the women in the magazines, where you make up all this stuff about them, blah blah blah, and it was like every woman was special, like a lot more special.
Yeah, you create like a love story with them in your mind.
Yeah,
it was interesting that that Daniel Radcliffe's character ended up being like a suicide. He like committed suicide. They like mentioned that because he's like, oh, it's probably like from the like his wounds that are like, you know, before he died are. They talked about how it like made it seem like he was like a bridge jumper, like jumped off the bridge.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, that was interesting, because he was gonna kill himself and then he didn't, and then he like went home and was
like saved by someone that did take their life. It's like kind of an interesting way to like symbolism almost there.
Yeah,
and they talked so much about like death
and life, and like Daniel Radcliffe's character couldn't remember what life was like, and that like really reflects in the fact that he like killed himself. It's like,
yeah, and like seeing things like that where they have him like the pictures, like he's riding on the bus. He's like, when I get back, I'm gonna ride the bus all the time, and it's like you kind of get an understanding of like this person that suffered so much to the point that they wanted to kill themselves, but then they're like reintroduced to it and see this like beauty in it.
Yeah, like
they probably get to the point where they're like, I just feel like I want to die, and it's like back to the beginning. It's like, I do understand how you feel, and it's like
you probably like loathed riding the bus when you were alive, and like all this other stuff, like all these mundane things that people take for granted.
It was a very like introspective story, really. Like there was so much going on in it that wasn't just the guy using the other guy as a tool. Like there was so much about like life and death and like love in that movie that you don't. It was like, I don't know. It's very intense, really. They have so many different ideas of stuff because he's trying to like teach him about like what love is and all this stuff. It's just like really good. I just thought it was like so good.
That was just really an interesting movie, and I like would be interested to know what happened after, but I hope they never make a sequel.
Yeah, I don't think they ever will. But I hope that guy makes another movie because that was guys. Was it 2 guys?
I think it's just 1, but maybe it's 2.
I really don't know.
I
But
don't know.
just either way, I hope they make more because I would be very anxious to see something else that they make.
Yeah.
Remakes, whatever. But yeah, so definitely go see this. I mean, if you're watching the spoilers, probably you've already seen it. But let us know what you guys think.
Comment below, subscribe, and we'll update you on our lives.
DM, just DM us.
Yeah.
Tell us about your life.
Leave our hate comments, please.
Okay, so, we'll talk to you later. Bye.